Welcome to the Rusted Garden. This episode is actually all about reseeding your lawn, something I've not talked about before. Most of us have lawns. I've been here almost 15 years and the trees have sent roots across the surface, sucking out all the nutrients in my lawn. The shade has come in, the lawn is really beat up. So I want to show you how you can do this the cheapest way possible and for it to be really effective. We're going to use 10 bags of topsoil, just your low-end topsoil. That was $1.64 a bag. 3 cubic feet of peat moss, that was about $12 a bag. Pick out the grass seed that you need. I need about 7 pounds, and you can kind of measure it to kind of the size of this lawn to get some idea, and pick a mix that works. If you're in shade, you want a shade mix. If you're in a mix of an area like I am, shade and sun, and if you're in sun, you want full sun. You also want to get some sort of feed with at least a 20 nitrogen. There's not a lot of nutrients left in here. There's not a lot of organic matter to hold water for the lawn. It's just really beat up. And about 2.5 years ago, that's when it started getting in trouble and I never really addressed it. You can see we're going to work in this area. This is a big patch area. So this is what it's going to look like at the end of the video. So we're going to take the lawn how you just saw it, turn it into this. Make sure you water it every day for 10 days. And in about 7 to 10 days, your grass seed will be sprouting and your lawn will be back to where you want it to be. Sun is dried out, cracking the soil, and I'm just going to give you a quick look around of what we're going to repair. All the way around there, back through there. I also have a lot of moss coming in. We're not going to worry about that right now. If you want to use a weed and feed to get rid of some of your weeds, go ahead and do that. But I do caution you, don't save the grass clippings if you use a weed and feed for at least 6 to 8 weeks after you put it down, because those chemicals do stay with the clippings and you don't want to be putting them on your garden. So the first thing that we're going to do is cut the grass. We're going to do that, and then we're going to water this for about 30 minutes to an hour to really soak the soil. And then we're going to put down the peat moss in the patches that are really missing the grass seed. That's going to be a layer to hold moisture. Then we're going to seed on top of the peat moss, wet that down, and then we're going to put the topsoil on top of that. All right, so the grass is cut. You want to use the mulching setting and just chop everything up, put it right onto the surface of your lawn. I'm going to go over the problem areas. Right here, it's going to get a lot of seed, topsoil, peat moss. I'll use this area specifically to show you how to do it. The root system of the trees over 15 years have just gotten really big. And they take all the life and moisture, not soil life, but all the moisture, all the nutrients out of the lawn. And then you add in the shade, the grass just doesn't do well. And again, you can see the roots right through here. So we're going to put more topsoil over here to kind of build it up a little bit, along with the peat moss. You can also see the different ant hills. If you have that, sometimes these might be bees too, some sort of bee. Either way, if you have the insects, you want to treat them now with whatever product you want to use, because if they're here, they're going to probably make their way over to your garden. I will also list the steps in the description. So we've cut the grass, and now I'm actually going to spray. I might have set it out of order. I'm going to spray the fertilizer down now. It's a 20-0-0, and just cover the whole area. I'm also using something to kill off the weeds. Don't get this near your garden. And again, I want to stress, don't use grass clippings if you've used a weed and feed product. So we're going to put that down now, and then we're going to water so that it gets into the soil, the nitrogen gets into the soil, the chemicals to take out the weeds gets into the soil, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. So when you're putting down your nitrogen spray, I just want to show you how to do it. Just follow the instructions, but you're not soaking the soil down, you're not doing watering, you're just getting the nitrogen down, or the weed and feed if you're using that. And maybe by the time you get to the bottom of the lawn, if it's a hot day, the upper area is going to be dry, but you're just getting a nice even coating of nitrogen throughout the lawn. And then once this is done, I'm going to use a sprinkler, maybe 45 minutes of water, 60 minutes. It's a hot day. I want this to be soaked, and then we'll get to the peat moss, topsoil, and seeds. Okay, so everything's been watered for about an hour, and you want to get to the point where it's soft when you walk on it, or if you put your finger down, it'll leave a dent. That means we got the moisture down there. And this is also the area that was all cracked, so if your soil's cracked because it's clay, you want to at least water it till the cracks go away. That means that the clay is absorbing the water, the soil's absorbing the water. We're going to do this whole area, and before we get to putting down the peat moss, again, you want it to be really soaked down. Peat moss is dry coming out of this 3 cubic foot bag. So we just want to put some puddling in the areas that we're going to throw the peat moss down. That will absorb the water. And you can do it however you want. Throw down some shovelfuls, do it by hand, whatever you'd like to do. And I'm going to go and cover the whole area with about a 1/4 inch of the peat moss. Then we're going to put the seed down and rake over that. But let me get this set up and show you what that looks like. So about a 1/4 inch of the peat moss is down, and everybody's coming out cutting their grass, so I apologize for the extra noise. But this is the main area that I really wanted to put the peat moss down first. And you might say, well, why can't you just use peat moss everywhere? It's very light, and you can see after I soaked it down, you want to put it down and soak it again, the water will really run it away. So you can't just put peat moss down, because if you get a hard rain, it's all going to wash away. So the next thing is really taking the seed and putting a hefty amount of seed all around, and then we're going to put the topsoil on there. And that will weight down the peat moss. That will be on top of the seed. In this area, I'm not going to put a lot of it because the soil level is pretty high already, and it's not so much the tree roots over here, it's just that it got beat up. So I'm going to seed everything, show you what that looks like, get the topsoil on there, then we're going to go over to the one more area that's the problem area with the roots coming through. Okay, so this area is done. That was 2 bags of the topsoil, the 40-pound topsoil, and it covered this whole area. So let's go ahead and walk on over to where the root is. And for this one, we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. We're going to rake the topsoil in first. That is 3 40-pound bags. See if I can do this with one hand. But you're just going to take a rake and really try and even this out over the whole space. Maybe like a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. And then once that's done, we're going to put peat moss on top of here. And the reason we're doing that is because we're really creating a brand new growing space for these seeds. We're trying to cover up the wood, and we're just going to go ahead and even it out there. And it'll probably be this whole general area will be done like that. Put down the peat moss, put down the seed, and then I'm going to rake it together. And I'll show you the progress from there. Just use peat moss because it's going to wash away. You don't want to just use this topsoil because it's inexpensive and it's going to dry out really quickly. So the combination of soaking the ground, putting the peat moss down, putting the seeds on top of there, and then dropping the topsoil on there presses the seeds down, and everything's going to germinate nicely. Now, of course, this is the cheapest way to do it, but you could buy premium topsoil that already has the peat moss mixed in there, and if you want to spend more money, you could get garden soil or even, a better soil. That's just up to you. But I wanted to show you how you can just make it out of 40-pound bags of topsoil and peat moss and kind of take care of a whole lawn about this size. All right, let me get to finishing up, and then we will wrap up. So here's the area pretty much finished out. I'll show you how I make a patch mix too right at the end. But I've covered the lawn in 2 basic ways, peat moss, seed, topsoil over here, and then in a deeper area where, well, I needed to go deeper with the soil because of the roots. It was topsoil, peat moss, and then the seed down, and I'll just go through and rake it around till everything mixes together nicely, and then I'm going to water everything in. Now for the rest of the lawn, 2 parts peat moss, 1 part topsoil, just mix it all together. That's probably like 8 handfuls of seed, but you want the seed mix to be just like that. And I will just take this and drop it down in areas that I want to patch up that weren't as severe as the one that's behind me or the area over there. So this was 10 bags of basic cheap topsoil. That was 40 pounds a bag. 3 cubic feet of the peat moss, 7 to 10 pounds of seed, and it's enough to really take care of this area. So if you subscribe, the second part of the video will really show you how the grass came in, and then we'll talk about feeding and taking care of it for the long term rather than just giving it the nitrogen to get it going and get it growing. After you're done, make sure you water it for about an hour every day for 10 days, and your lawn should come back and it should look pretty good. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop and garden shop at www.therustedgarden.com. Thanks.